Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Pursuing Horizons podcast. Today, we are speaking with Ryan MacDougall, which I was actually on Ryan's podcast on Tuesday. So, if you want to watch that whole conversation, just go to his page, check it all out. It's really good. We dive into my origin story, my fitness career. We even get into the Spartan race and all the kind of details around that too. So, give it a watch. It was a lot of fun. But today, we're talking about Ryan. We're talking about his job, what made him want a podcast, set up his space, and everything. But otherwise, man, we are stoked to have you on. So thank you for making the time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, man. It was a pleasure to get to meet you, getting to meet Rob here. And yeah, man, we had an awesome conversation. I'm honored to be a guest on yours, and I'm excited to have a very great conversation. Can't wait to dive into it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So now I'm playing the counter here. Let's hear your origin story. Let's get into like all the details, like even what you're doing now, because you mentioned that you do corrections now.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that, and then even like what made you want to get into podcasting, pursue the creation of your space, and like we'll talk about like the goal aspirations that you have for your podcast too.
Sure. So I moved out to Edmonton 7 years ago. Um, Picking up on the law enforcement background that I had, I kind of used that as an advantage. Being in law enforcement or working with government, you kind of have the advantage of being able to traverse. I had some family here, so I came out here. For a good most of the time, I didn't, I just did my job. I had some other side hustles where that's kind of where I found that I could do stuff on my own, if that makes sense. Like I was doing stuff with crypto, I was doing stuff with drop shipping. All of it kind of like failed, like miserably, but you kind of pick that up, you learn the skills, and then you move on, right? So April last year, I always had this notion with like my coworkers and everything, like, oh, you talk so much and you're so loud and this like that. And instead of like leaning against it and being like, no, that's not who I am, that's not who I am, it was kind of one of those things where you kind of knew that was a trait of yours, and I kind of just embodied it. But there was like a moment where I was out with one of my co-hosts, Richard, and we were watching I remember like it was yesterday, we were watching the Ryan Garcia, Gervonta Tank Davis fight. It was this huge thing. They were like, Ryan Garcia, whatever. So like that's what really stuck with me out the whole thing, not even creating the podcast. It was the fact of like, I bet like $5, made like $70 or whatever. And I was like, whoa, that's a big deal. But yeah, we kind of like talked about it, like a lot of, when you look at corrections, like it's a lot of verbal based, right? Like a lot of it's communicating. So you're always sharing stories or seeing people from different walks of life, and it always kind of gets like tossed around in like the work circles, like, oh, we should have a podcast, oh, the conversations. But it's one of those things where like to get it off the ground and to actually have people commit is a whole nother story. So essentially, it was a tough conversation I had with a friend of saying like, I don't think you're ready. I've had a little bit of exposure. I'm a pretty big like nerd or like proverbial like tech guy. So I kind of had like a little bit of like understanding of like, yeah, this isn't really as like easy as people say it is, and like to have all this set up and like to have the consistency. So I kind of had to tell him like, hey, I think you're full of shit, and like but if you want to do it, let's do it. But like you have to commit like X amount of weeks to like trying to do this. If it doesn't work, then cool. But like we're not gonna like meander on it. Like we're not just gonna talk and talk and talk. Like we either decide right now that we're doing it, or you never speak to me about this again, and I will never entertain it. Like you have this one opportunity to tell me that you want to do it. After this, I will never explore this with you ever again. Because for me, that was one of those ones where it's like I'm setting a path, right? Like I'm putting this in motion and I'm not going to waste my time. So it started off, we called it for the first episode, and it was called Single Men's Social Club. I then got in a relationship, and we were diverting so much of our audience away. And then I was having guests on, and they were like, well, I'm not single, nor am I a man. And you're like, yeah, that makes total sense. So we should probably switch this. And then out of like shooting the ideas around, I was like, well, I do record it out of my spare bedroom. I'm kind of trying to create like a studio vibe, thus the inception of Spare Bedroom Studios. So that's kind of where like the whole thing evolved. And then throughout time, just in terms of like personal requirements from my co-hosts and some other people we got on board, it was hard to like get everybody together with shift work. It's like we couldn't guarantee that we were always going to have the same day off, or we were going to be able to like meet, and some guys were from different provinces. So then I was like, well, I had the opportunity to interview my sister, who was an occupational therapist, and then I said, you know what, I really enjoy this. Like, I really enjoy doing this. I don't really know what I'm doing. And like the first couple episodes, it was a lot of like cutting people off and like barging into their stories and trying to like finish their sentences. And then you kind of like, throughout time, you get a lot of feedback where people are like, oh, you don't shut up. And you're like, isn't this the point? And then you kind of realize there's like a structure to it, right? So then I kind of had to start training myself and understanding like how to actually like ask the right questions, how to like balance out a conversation, how to do those things, right? So then it kind of forked off, right? And that was the inception of Solo Spotlight, and then the inception of the Conversationalist, and those kind of went on their independent routes upward. So I wanted to make sure that I paid my respects to the hosts that I had, and not wanting to sign them up for something they didn't want to do, which would be interviewing anybody, right? And like these guys, that's not what they signed up for. So then this kind of turned into its own thing. And yeah, we've had the pleasure of being able to interview so many amazing people from all across. I've interviewed people from Edmonton, Nova Scotia, Texas, Portland, California. I got to interview a dude that he was making art for he lost one of his eyes due to like a detached retina, and he was like an up and coming triathlete. And then he became, while during his recovery, he got into learning pottery, and then he called himself like the half bind potter, and that's how I was
awesome.
Yeah, and I was able to like get in contact with him, and then he started like learning, like, not only do I like to do pottery, but like this might be a way for me to like pay homage to people that might not necessarily have the ability to see. So like people can recognize my art for art, but then I can also make like textile features with this art. And so people that don't see, they can still enjoy it, right? And that was one of these like breakthrough interviews where like, although my performance was kind of shoddy, like the story of even him saying how like people that he would be going out to dinner and he would be like putting the leftovers in a plate and he'd feel like a resistance, and like some random strangers trying to help him like put food in his plate because like they see that he's wearing an eye patch and they just automatically assume that like this guy needs help. So even just like navigating that world of like, I'm not like an injured being, like I have something that like happened to me, but like that doesn't lessen me as a human. So even just going through that, right, it was really, really interesting. And talking to a woman in Portland who makes like prosthetic eyes, and talking about how like she made what's called the Cool Eye Fund, or the Fun Eye Fund, and essentially for kids that are of younger age, like it's hard for them to go through like a traumatic experience with losing an eye, and like they don't want to take their childhood away from them. So they would create this fund so that if they wanted, say, a pride flag, or they wanted like a cyborg eye or something like that, they were able to allow the kids to have that creativity. And it was something, so it was really, really cool and really like refreshing to hear those stories. And it kind of fulfilled me a lot to be able to like platform that and like have those conversations. And again, like this was very early on where like and even today, like I still have so much room to grow, but it's the idea of like I was able to have these conversations and I was able to like meet these incredible human beings and share their story that might not have ever been able to be shared, or nobody really wanted to have them on, right? So that's kind of what kept the momentum going. And now it's like I tell people all the time, it's like when I look at guests, it's like I'm just picking up a heap of spaghetti, I'm throwing it at the wall, and whoever says yes, come on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Man, Ryan, if you're willing, I'd love to get into a couple of like, or a bit of the minutia of this story here. Because like that was incredible. Like
Yeah.
that for sure is the record of the longest time of Bryce and I not having to say a word. And that makes me happy that there's other people like us out there.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, go, man, go.
Yeah.
Okay, so corrections, law enforcement background.
Yeah.
I would love to chat a little bit about kind of what put you into that funnel, what kind of steered you that way, and then what those conversations that started to stem for that were like that inspired all of this.
Yeah, so with corrections, like I think the initial thing was I wanted to get into policing.
Yeah.
And when you look at like policing in Nova Scotia, it's like governed by a college. So if you can't get into the college, you can't really be a cop in the Atlantic provinces. And that's kind of how it works. Like they kind of gatekeep it in that way. Not to say it's a bad thing or a good thing, but it's it was one of those things where I tried and it wasn't successful. And then I already went to like college for it. And it was one of those things like I gotta earn a living. This is something that I knew I kind of wanted to do. I juggled between wanting to do like paramedicine or firefighting. I wanted to do something in like the law enforcement or like emergency response sector. That was kind of what I felt was my calling. I felt like I was a good, like I had pretty good interpersonal skills. Before that, I was a coach for like 9 years doing coaching soccer at a high level. I played Mount St. Vincent varsity soccer. But it was kind of one of those things, and that's kind of where it grew. Then I got into corrections. Very tough. Very exciting. But it's something where I lean back on my social skills. I lean back on like my ability to like manage those conflicts. But you know, you have to like work on like what some big things for me was I had to work on like self-esteem. I had to work on like being able to like talk to people in different age ranges and like be willing to give people like the hard truth of like, hey, this behavior isn't like conducive to a working environment, and like you can't do that. And like telling someone that's in their 60s, at this time I'm 19, 20 years old, right? And I'm telling a guy like, hey man, you're gonna have to like go lock up. And this guy's like, who are you talking to? Right? So then going through that, and especially in small town like Nova Scotia, where the people that are in corrections at the time, there was a huge discrepancy in like age. So a lot of the people that I was working with, I had like no commonality. Like there was no, like a lot of these guys are in like their 30s, 40s. Like this is like a generational thing, right? Like this is what they were like, they wanted to do this ever since they were a kid. And this was kind of just something that like landed in my lap. Like I was trying to do other things. I was trying to get into sheriffs, and then it just like didn't work out for me. So I took this. And then through my 3 years there, I kind of said, you know what? Like, I don't want to live in this small town. Like, I'm not trying to do this forever. Like, people are like, I'm in my 20s. People are here settling down, have families. And I don't really know what I'm doing. So my sister always mentioned, like, why don't you come to Edmonton? Why don't you come to Edmonton? And I was like, I don't know, like this and that. So then I just made the jump. I just said, you know what? I'm going to apply. Everybody I worked with thought I was crazy. They're like, you're going to get mauled up there. You have no idea. Like, this is a daycare compared to like the jails up there. And you're just like, well, we'll find out. And so I packed up my stuff in my Honda Civic. Me and my girlfriend at the time, we both got the job at the jail. We travel up here in 3 days. We got like 2 days notice. And we made it up here. And even with my experience, it was like it was just starting out. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe even with my experience. It was almost to a fault. Like it was almost to a fault at the way like the governments work and the amount of people and stuff like that. And then, you know, developing like a network of friends and stuff like that. I started to like develop my skills for like being good at reading body language, understanding like all of these like different like traits, and being able to like explain things and articulate myself to, you know, when you have issues with some of the, I'll say clients for, you know, better word of it. Sometimes it's the idea of like, they just haven't got a little bit of dignity and they need you to like articulate it a little better and just be like, hey, I don't know if you like understand, or like, but this is just how it is, man. And like, there's no bullshit. Like, I'm just like, but yeah, sometimes you can't be the asshole. You got to sit down with them and say like, hey man, this is just how it is. Like, I have no control over it. And like, you know, if you hate me, you hate me. It doesn't really matter. This is business, not personal. But that's kind of where it came into like really finding my niche for the podcasting, because I was able to kind of like give people an opportunity or give people like space to speak and be like, what's the issue here, man? And like that kind of, it transferred. It wasn't a direct translation, but it transferred in my ability to like quell conflict and get people's stories and share them properly, right?
Yeah.
So that's, and again, like this, like I wouldn't say this happens to everybody, because like it's a scary place, man, and like you can easily get like caught up in the wrong side of things, and you can easily get like caught up in this like ego, like trying to be like the best person, and like you're talking about humans, right? And it's like nobody really knows what's going on. It's like, even to look at like personal training, it's like you could give someone a workout routine and there could be 1,000 people that would have a criticism on that, regardless what you think. And they might be right, and you might be right, and that guy might be right, and right. And so it's one of those things where you have to kind of learn to drop the ego. And you know, that's that was a big learning lesson for me, right? Where it's like you have to be able to handle that criticism, and like, you know, that's that was like I'd say one of the biggest skills is like losing the ego and not being ego driven.
Yeah, that you kind of answered my next question there. Like, I find this whole thing so fascinating and very admirable too. Like this, like the hustle to do it and the drive to do it. What And you mentioned a couple little things here, but what do you think is something that when you went in, this is what changed in me when I came out? And you've mentioned, interpersonal skills, being able to like read body language and understanding like the humanity behind it. But is there one thing that you can say, like, I learned this from this experience and this is going to serve me now for the rest of my existence?
You got to be your own cheerleader.
Cool.
Tell
us more.
Even when I talk to new staff, like I'm on a shift and there's probably 150 staff. I've been working with people for over 6 years now that I've probably talked to once. And then you see them at the Christmas party and you're like, I'm sorry, what's your name? And they're like, you've worked with me for 5 years. What the fuck? But it's just one of those things, right? But the idea of like if you're not going to be willing to advocate for yourself, A, in terms of criticism, and B, in terms of like progression and opportunities, and like being able to like manage things, right? Like you have to be willing to quote unquote like stand on business, right? Like you have to be willing to kind of put yourself out there and be like, you know what? You might not think I was right, but I think I could explain this to, if you bring me down to the managers and like they were have to ask me, I think I could give like an articulable reason on why I did what I did. And if you don't like it, that's cool, man. Like it is what it is. But that would be the biggest thing overall of like being your best advocate, because like in that situation, and even when you look at podcasting, even when you look at a lot of things, it's like that's one of those skills that I saw that kind of like transformed my life in a bit of being like, oh, you don't like it? That's okay. I'm all right with that.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. I love that. That's a skill that definitely I find for most people is it's learned and you're not born with, it's not a natural thing. I have met people that can go out there and it's like, and I don't want to use the word shame because I don't really believe in that anymore. More so like there's just no afterthought. There's no second guessing what you've done. It's just, here it is, take it or leave it. And I've always admired that quite a bit, but it usually stems from some kind of like learning cycle or like repeated thing over and over again.
Well, and it's a flip of a coin, right? Like when you look at something like that, like I always say, like even you have new staff where you're like, I can't press this dude as hard because if I press this guy, you're just going to break him. And and I always tell people, it's not who you are, where you go in, it's like what it spits you out, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you're trying to maintain so many things, but you have to understand that everybody's human, right? So it's like what I might be able to withstand might be different from that person, and like having that self-awareness just to be like, oh, we're all just trying to figure it out, man.
Hell
like,
yeah, man.
We're all just trying to get through the end of the day, and it's very hard to find like a definitive answer to anything. So it's kind of like you have to welcome that criticism and just be like, yo, I can't be everybody's best friend. I can't be a fan. Like, I can't have everybody fanboying me, right? Like, I can have friends and shit like that, but at the same time, it's like, wouldn't I want people being like, oh, like, I'll give you an example. I just posted this thing I was recording with my friends. We pull up this thing about some guy. He was financing like these Air Force Ones, and I was like, oh, they're like $1,000 shoes, and I put it out, and I'm just getting roasted in the comments. Like, I don't know who taught you math. Like, these are, and you're like, yeah, my bad, man. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and it's just, you're just like this. So you just let it roll off, right?
That's the way.
But it's difficult, right? And like, you kind of have to understand it when you see a dude pop off, or when you have a guy freak out. You're like, I could have also done that. Like, you push the right buttons.
Yeah.
I'm not susceptible to like losing my mind either, right? So like, when a dude flies off the bandwagon, you're like, yeah, well, that I could have got the same stimulus that could have fucked me up too.
Absolutely.
Right?
And it made me quickly think here. The only thing I can really relate to that is I worked a bit as a bouncer, and
Right.
I always was like, okay, this is fun for me. Like, I'm happy that like I worked out enough that someone thought to hire me as a security. But at this point, I was like, this is more like, you either have it or you don't, and it's that like, have you been punched in the face or you haven't, right?
Right.
And you can usually tell, and I'm sure you're incredible at being able to detect that. But one thing I found is that I was able to bring myself up to that level, but I didn't feel natural there, and it took me days to come down from that guard and trying to de-escalate situations. And it led to me, you know, over drinking at night and really getting to quite a dark place. So everyone I've met that's been really successful in first responder fields or in the corrections world, law enforcement, like, there seems to be a very good skill, even though there is a lot of suffering as well. Like, there seems to be a nice little, you're able to, when you're out and you're done work and you're in your home life, that's what you're doing. And it doesn't bleed through. And was that a learning curve for you, or did you have a system in place for that, or just, this is Ryan, this is who I am across the board?
So at the start, it was like you're living to work, right? Like, it's the overtime, it's the this, it's the that, it's the excitement. But then you kind of like that dies off, right? But I kind of instill this into like new staff and even just people, where it's like, your words are going to get you the most places, but if you have to turn it on, you can turn it on.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I'm going to try to manage this at the lowest possible level possible. But if you want to go, we can, like, if you want to go this way, we can go this way. That's not my intention. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm meeting you on a level that I think is the most professional. I want to de-escalate this as much as I can, but I still have the skill to do it. So like, if I got to turn on the jets, I got to turn on the jets.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to. And in every possible way, that's not my goal. But it's the same when you look at like people stealing or whatever it is. It's like, listen, I'm going to tell you to put the stuff back. If you don't put the stuff back, I'm going to call the cops. Okay. I don't want to.
Yeah.
But I will, right? But it's a learning curve, right? Of like, I think what it is just handling that stimulus, right? And then being okay with that, because it's a shock for a lot of people, right? Like, the shock factor is so huge that I think people just get addicted to it. They get addicted to the shock value of, oh, this happened. Oh, did you hear what this happened on this? Or, right? And it's, if you come in and you don't have a good like maturity, or you don't have a good gauge for that, it's really hard to get like lost in that. And it's endless. Like, the amount of stimulus and things happening, like, it's endless. You can absorb your whole world around it, right? And then you go, like, even I catch myself, like, I'll be on YouTube watching like body cam videos of like Karens freaking out and stuff, and it's like, everybody's susceptible to it, right? So you kind of just have to have the self-awareness, and I think that just came with age for me, but it also just came through like the girl that I was with working corrections. Like, we ended up breaking up, but she was still on my shift, so like, I had to figure out a way of like, well, I still got to go to work, and like, I got to figure out a way to interact with this chick without it being a thing. And I've seen it happen where guys didn't handle it the right way. So you're like, do I want to be that guy? Right? And you have the option. Like, you always have the option of whether or not you want to choose to do it or not, right? But it was definitely a big learning curve. Like, I felt like once I learned it, it wasn't linear progression. It was like, once I learned it, it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Like,
good.
It was like, I was fucking around for a long time, and then something switched, where then it was like, oh, and then it was like nothing mattered, right? Where it was like I went from worrying about everything to worrying about nothing,
Yeah.
right? So, but it's a very, very, very difficult spot because there's so many people and there's just so much to navigate. Are you navigating your journey through what you want your peers to think about you? Is it where you want to be? Is it who you want to hang out with? Right? And all that like comes into play, right? And then it's, you have people that they're very faithful and they come into a jail setting and that's used against them, right? Because it's low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Right? It's very low hanging fruit. Same with like the fact that I played soccer. Very low hanging fruit, right? Like it's I'm short. I'm not that big, right? Very low hanging fruit. So people have to navigate that, right? Like it's a very, very like tough setting if you don't kind of have your own like best interest, or you don't even know what you want. A lot of people at that age, they have no idea what they want, right? So it's they come into it and then they're like, oh shit, like I don't know, right?
Yeah. I think any friend I've ever had that's pursued it, a couple landed with sheriffs over time, but many with corrections and couldn't. There was a couple that you could tell from day one knowing them were perfect for it, or were just there maybe as like maybe not the best person that could be there, just wanted to fight, But the ones, it washed everybody out, everyone I know. And it's great to hear. I'm glad to hear that your personality in there is what's in there, man.
Thank you. And on top of that, like sometimes you have people that you're like, this dude's washed. And then eventually he just turns around. He just turns a new leaf and you're like, it took you a little longer, but like you figured out where your place is, right? So like I've been shocked so many times of like people that I was like, this dude isn't going to last 6 months. And then all of a sudden you turn around and he's your supervisor and you're like, what the, right? But it's one of those things like you just have to give people dignity and go, I might be wrong, like, and that's you have to be very humble and be very understanding of being like, I don't have all the right answers. So like, I might think you're a dork, but what the fuck do I know? Right? Like just as much this guy knows is just as much I don't know. And just as much I know is just as much as this guy doesn't know. So you kind of have to say, like, even when you talk to some of the clients, you have to say, like, this is what I think. I think you're doing something stupid, but if you can prove me wrong, I'll eat my words.
Love that.
Right?
Yeah. I feel like sometimes we tend to base a lot of our opinions off of like initial interactions or off of just like certain opinions. And I feel like it's sometimes challenging because we might have a certain experience that forms a certain thought process, right? But I find oftentimes just a matter of kind of catching yourself in that too and just being like, hey, you know what? Like, let's not be so judgmental or so critical, because sometimes, like you mentioned too, like this person could have had an off day or they could have just had like a bad moment. And like we've all had those bad moments too, but maybe the difference is we didn't have a camera on us, right? Or we didn't have like any of that reference point too, because I'm sure like if we were to really go back into the archives, I'm sure there was a time where like one of us reacted poorly or presented ourselves poorly online or in person too. And it's just like we're fortunate enough to not have that like video archive of it. But some people aren't so lucky where they just happen to be on camera, and then that kind of like taints their image, right? So I think it's important to just like not be so judgmental, because I've caught myself too, like judging people. Then you actually get to know them too, and you're like, oh, this is why you're that way. And like it makes so much more sense once you have some more understanding and like you understand the nuance and the context to it. Then it is way easier to understand, I find.
Well, and like when you look at it, like what I say a lot is like it's main character syndrome, right? Like people walk through life and they think that like everything happening is directed in their direction, right? But the experience is the experience, right? Like you were just happened to be there when you were there, but so did 80 other people, right? And it's your choice on how you want to handle that. You don't need to handle it like this guy. You don't need to handle it like this guy. You got to find a way to deal with it. But I think the idea is like people think like that was directed towards me.
Yeah.
Like that dude did that because I was here. And it's just not the case, right? And people kind of need to like, I think it just takes a little bit of introspectiveness and a little bit of like self-awareness to go like, well, where am I at right now? Am I in my own house? and this dude's freaking out? Okay, well, it is like a me thing. Am I at Walmart and this dude's like freaking out? Okay, well, like it's not, it's not a big. So I think that's a big thing where people need to recognize, like, yo, we're all just trying to figure it out. And like, people are like, we like in like a jail culture, like the biggest thing is like manipulation. And like, people get like, say I give someone a pen. Well, some of these guys, like, they're like career criminals, right? So like they'll hold on to that pen just to see if I'm gonna ask for it back. Yeah. And then if just as a little thing, right? So it's just one of those things where like you need to understand like what that action is, and then go like, would I be just as susceptible if I was in the same situation? Would I be just as susceptible of getting upset or this and that? So it's like, you kind of have to like put yourself in different people's shoes and like see it on the outside looking in and being like, if I was there, I'd probably be a little peeved too, right? And like,
that's deep wisdom, in my opinion, too, that has taken me way longer than I would have liked to realize, as someone who used to completely engage with every passing feeling and not knowing anything about emotional maturity or anything like that. That is, I would say, a top 3 of my things I've learned that have helped. And you mentioned another one too, a couple segments back, that was that multiple things can be true at the same time with different people, right? And whereas before it used to be so binary, like, I'm right, you're wrong. And I read this quote that was like, even when you win an argument, you still lose. You know what I mean? Because you've lost the respect of the person, and you encounter those personalities, and I think a lot of them end up becoming like lawyers and stuff like that. And like, we need those personalities too. I understand, but I remember it took till like, I'm 39 now, and it took till, my early to mid 30s before I heard like both things can be true at the same time, and that everyone is here to teach you something. Like every single person, if I prejudge anything, then that's the first thing I'm gonna think when I meet this person. It's going to literally close a part of my brain down that's going to pick up something to learn, because everybody knows a little bit of something. And like you, I'm very chatty, and I love talking to strangers and people. And I used to say, like, airport bar is the coolest place in the world, because you'll just meet the most fascinating people, and some of the greatest wisdom I've ever learned is from one conversation there. But when it comes to thinking, this main character syndrome, and especially with the rise of social media and everything, and that can be amplified, and there's aspects of it that I think make a lot of cool creativity and art in the world. But I remember my therapist said to me, and all this is a long-winded way to get at this, but one of the funniest things I ever heard from my therapist, when they kind of like got to figure out maybe what needed to be worked out in my personality, and she was just like, Rob, not everybody is thinking about you as much as you think they are. And I didn't mean it from a place of like conceit or anything like that. I meant it as like that, I'd be questioning the conversation I had with the guy bagging my groceries, and like, did this person like me? Could I have offered to hold the bag more? And the ability to be like, this is just not on their radar, you know what I mean? And that's that same ability to be like, not engage with those feelings, or like seeing this, always going for violence, or always going for like aggression, as opposed to just letting it roll over you. Which, another cool thing, that goes back to like rad, like Taoist Buddhist stuff of just let that wave roll. And I just think so many people out there could learn so many lessons from that. And if there was any place I'd want it to be, it would be in correction. So I'm so stoked to hear that, man.
And it like, dude, I only started acting this way like within the last few years, man. Like I said, like I was a child until like 27. Yeah. Like in terms of how I would think about stuff and how I would react to things, and how like and a lot of times like I look back on like all my previous like even thinking coming up to this interview, I was like thinking about it, and I was like, a lot of like my relationships up until like 25 ended like chaotically. Okay, well, where's the common denominator?
Yeah.
Right? Exactly, right?
Yeah, I've been to that too,
right? So it's very, it's something where you have to look at and say like, okay, man, like, and not only that, it's like, you have to give, like, I always say, like, people need to give themselves more respect from the get-go, right? Like, people shit on themselves so much, where it's like, say the guy bagging groceries. It's like, dude, we can't be upset about the guy bagging groceries. You're better than that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why
Yeah.
are we worrying about that? Like, that's what your life has come down to, that
Oh,
we're
yeah.
worried about the dude, right? Like, but it was the same thing with me. Is like, I'd be peeved if like I got put in this position instead of this position. It's like, you think the dude that's managing 150 staff, he just goes like this? It's just plugging holes on a ship. Like,
Yeah.
but it's the idea of like, you have to give yourself more credit, and you have to like allow yourself to say like, yeah, you know what? Like, I'm not really owed this criticism, and like, I'm doing better than this. And like, maybe it's right, maybe it's not, and I'll take it for what it's worth. But it's like I talked to Bryce about, like, there's certain aspects like I don't ask basketball advice from people that don't play basketball.
Yeah.
It's like, that's just as simple as it is,
Exactly.
right? And it's not like, it's not a nod to them, it's not shitting on them. But it's just one of those things of like, you have to hold yourself to a type of standard, because that kind of like dictates where you're going to go. Like, if that's what I'm going to worry about, like, where's the ceiling, right? Like, I have people where we're like assessing them, and like, it's a scale out of 5, and they're 6 months in, they're giving themselves a 4. And I'm not telling them they need to give themselves a 1 because they suck, but I'm saying like, this is the best you got? Well, that's not enough, man. Like, and you're really shitting on yourself for no reason. Give yourself a 1 or a 2, and now you're giving yourself so much room. You're telling everybody like, this is the worst I'm gonna be.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Like, and even when I like put out episodes, I say like, every episode I put out, like a year from now, like, this is always gonna like, this is the worst it's gonna be until the next one, and then that's the worst it's gonna be, and then it's just 1% more and more. And it's not like shitting on anything. It's not shitting on like, but it's like, it's the idea that like, I'm striving to get to a point. Where that point is, I don't know, but it's like, as long as I'm doing better than I was before, I'm good.
Yep.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the angle, right? But like, people, they have it in their head of like, I need to be there. That's like, not right now. Not right now, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I find it's a bit of a double-edged sword, right? Of holding yourself accountable but not being too hypercritical. Because obviously we want to hold ourselves to a standard where we're trying to consistently be that 1% better. But like you mentioned too, we don't want to be too outcome based. Right. And I find that creates, if we're focusing solely on outcomes, we create people that are very outcome driven, and in turn, people that are only really truly happy when they accomplish something.
yeah.
And I think it's kind of a bit of a double-edged sword, to reiterate, just because I do think that we have to be able to also give ourselves credit where it's due, just for like work and progress, because we want to see strides and we want to see progression over time. But we also don't want to be giving ourselves like this false sense of accomplishment of like, oh, you're doing really well, of like, maybe you're actually not. So I find it's like an interesting talking point, because like, even for you, right, looking back at 2 years from now, even thinking about where you were then versus where you are now, but it's like, how do we get that balance of not being too nice to ourselves, but also being nice enough that we're not degrading ourselves morally?
Well, I think it comes down to like, David Goggins talked about it with like the mental cookie jar, right? Where it's like, it's a timing thing, right? Where it's like, I'm looking back at it when I need it the most. And I'm not using it as like, I'm trying to wear it. It's like, in order for me to maintain this momentum, there's going to be some times where you need to pat yourself on the back. There's some times where you go, fuck, I fucked up that episode, or like, I could have said this, or like whatever. And then you got to go, yeah, but like, look at all the people I was able to interview. Look at all the conversations. And I even tell like my friends when we have like visual audio failures, it's like, hey, at the very least, I was able to see some of my best friends.
Yeah.
And it's like, but you have to find a lens to look at it, right? And I think like, yeah, it's never going to be perfect, right? Like, it's never ever going to be perfect, but you kind of have to look at it and say, well, this didn't work out, but like, the silver lining is here. And like, we can all like, hey, I even tell guys, like, even when they're like, MacDougall, we should have did this, or why didn't this work, whatever it is, it's like, hey, at the very least, we have to give ourselves a pat on the back for just showing up. We all showed up, and we all gave it the fucking best go, right? And you know what? We have next week, and we have the week after that. And it's one of those things where I think it's a timing thing. I think it's you have to take those moments and say like, okay, do I need to give myself a pat on the back? Am I riding a high thing? Am I riding like this high like momentum where I like feel the best? Okay, well, I don't need to stack onto that. That's the time where you're like, okay, cool, like this is really good, but like these are the things that I should still work on. And like now that I have this momentum, or like I see like a thing blow up, you're like, perfect. Okay, what out of that worked? You know, how did that work? Okay, cool, right? Okay, this worked, that worked. All right, perfect. Now I'm going to take that back to the drawing board. I'm really happy and excited that like these videos took off. One of the reels we put out, 30,000 views. It's like, okay, what did I do? Did I add music? Did I not add music? Was it the clipping? Was it not the clipping, right? But it's like, I'm still very thankful that the objective was kind of complete, but it's like the job's not done there, right? It's like, it's always this idea of like, how can I take that and use that momentum further?
Yeah.
And like, I'm sure you guys can see it too, where like, say at the start of your fitness journey, maybe some people were like, I don't see it. Whatever it is. It was like with me, like it's a very hostile workplace that I'm in, right? So a lot of people, when you tell them you're starting a podcast, they're like, nah, that's stupid. And then you see some success and people are coming back to you like, oh man, you're doing such a great job. And instead of being like, oh, fucking rights, I'm doing a great job, like fuck you, it's like, hey man, thank you, really appreciate that.
Totally,
like, you know, right? And you kind of just have to know, like, because it's like what you're seeing now is like the worst product. Like what you're seeing now, like you like it now. Well, you hated it before, you like it now. You just fucking wait.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
you just wait, right? And it's kind of one of those things, right, where you have to really like address it on like a case by case basis, and like you know, you have to know when it's like you're riding the high, and then you have to go, okay, let's break this down. Like when I was coaching soccer, a kid would score a goal that he's been practicing forever, and all I tell him is, okay, what did that feel like? How did the ball hit your foot? What feeling? What'd you eat for breakfast? How did that look? Okay, let's try to recreate that.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're looking for, right? We're trying to recreate this environment. And that's really the idea of like with podcasting, with Success Anywhere. It's like, okay, what did I do? How did I wake up? How did I talk to people? Oh, okay. Well, that's a good method moving forward, and I can take this recipe and I can continue this.
Yeah.
And did it make you feel gross? Okay, you probably did something wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And
absolutely.
And that's one thing too, where it's like you just got to trust your gut, man. Like me and Bryce talked about it, where it's like Occam's razor. The simplest solution is probably the most correct, right? Where it's like, you know, if you hear hoof prints, don't think of a zebra, think of a horse.
Exactly, man.
Right?
Oh, I loved that. I loved everything there. First of all, I was every little point. I was like, oh my gosh, that reminds me of this and that. It was great.
Yeah.
With this podcast, when I was in the early boy band days, I should stop calling it a boy band. I said I would. In the early band touring days, I was really young, and what looked like overnight success actually took years of sleeping on van floors, dropping out of high school, all this stuff to get, and then this TV show blows us up, and then all of a sudden we were big. To the other than the 10 fans in North America that we had played to for the first 5 years before that. But one thing that I noticed in that, when I look back on that and just like emotional immaturity and everything, was the only highs I got were results. It was like, oh my god, we have a gold record now. Oh, this feels awesome. But then I instantly, everything less than that, and that doesn't happen on every song, was a failure. When no, that's not right at all. Like back, even playing to 100 people back in the day, it used to be like the most incredible thing ever. Now we were playing to like 10,000 people, and it really led to a lot of unnecessary stress and misery at a time that should have been, oh my gosh, my dreams are coming true. So any new endeavor I take, and this podcast included, I am here to really enjoy this. Whether one person sees it or 10 million people see it, the enjoyment I try to find from it is the conversation of why I started it in the first place, which is just chatting to homies that I think have cool stories and learning something from it. That seems to be the way. That is, celebrate the work put into it and the result. Celebrate your wins, absolutely. Find those wins to Sally, but not based on that result. So that when you go to tackle your next problem, it's not like, oh my gosh, if I don't get this outcome, it's done. It's the pursuit of trying to achieve that is so exciting to me, and that's the real learned part there. I went on a bit of a tangent there. I apologize. I just had so much to think about when you were chatting there. I loved it, man.
Yeah, right on. And it's very interesting. You like being a musician and being in it, and how like it was even like difficult for you to like see it, right? There was one thing that someone like told me like a while ago where it was like the moment you do something, you have to start like identifying as that person, or like you're not going to see that success, right? And on that note, where it's like people don't see like the background work, and like if you're not seeing those like achievements, but it's that idea of like how many pieces of art did Picasso paint before one became famous? Like this guy was about to give up, and then his wife was like, hey, I'm gonna take this piece of art into this art gallery and donate it, and then all of a sudden this was the biggest piece of art that he's ever made ever. And it's like, dude, this guy was at the edge of failure, and everything that he was painting was not getting anywhere, and now this guy's like the best painter ever, right? But it's like this guy was 3, 4, 5,000 paintings, right? Like, and so you kind of have to look at it like not everything's gonna hit, but it's the idea of like, isn't that what success takes?
Yeah.
Like, you know, it like, or another thing where it's like if someone were to create like the greatest human in the world, like, would they give them an easy life? Would they not give them challenges? Like, would they give them everything they wanted as soon as they asked? It's like, no. Like, the biggest lessons you will learn come from failure. Like, that's just as simple as it is. And like, people kind of just have to address that and say, I don't know what your failure is going to be. I don't know what objective you're trying to accomplish, but it's the idea of like, well, you're only going to find chinks in your armor by going that route. And if everything's a fine line, it's like that's when people really get the ego, and like when people are just like people blowing smoke up your ass all the time. I'm sure that was the same for you, Rob, where it was like you're on this TV show, you're a musician, you're touring, you're doing this, you're doing that. So then as soon as the rug's pulled underneath you, it's like, oh, I'm not the shit? What the fuck? Like, no, come back, right? But you can't blame you. Yeah. It's like that's human nature. That happens, right? And it's like you address it, you find out, okay, how did that work? What did I need to do? How did I talk to people? How was I like, how was I in control of like myself? And then you just go, okay, cool, let's chop this up and let's bring it on to the next one, right? And like it's a hard thing to say to someone because nobody really knows what anybody's going through, right? Yeah. So it's like it's easier said than done, but it's the idea of like that's just how it works.
And when you view it, like you were saying earlier too, of like all of us just trying to figure it out, I just know from my personality type that will always resonate with me, even when I'm seeing red, completely unable to access any like good thoughts. Usually when I feel camaraderie and on that same equal level, because we all are, it just instantly comes down. Like the walls come down, and I feel so much like able to access higher wisdom and just more compassion and everything there. It's funny how the experiences we felt, and that's the thing, is we don't know what anybody's going through, right? But we know our lives, and we have similar friends and that have been through similar things too. So like there always is those levels, and the paradigm and the lens that I see the world through, there's no one in this world that's gonna have the exact amount of like experiences I've had, and exactly what, like looking out this window here, what this tree does to me on an emotional level and what it resonates with my mind. So when you start thinking it that way, that we're equal and we're all like trying to figure this wild experience out together, and now we have access to every piece of information that's ever existed in our fingertips, which is wild. It's that balance, right? And I'm losing my train of thought here, so I'll get one of you to step on this really fast. But it's that balance of, okay, yes, we are one, we're this, but I also know that I am completely individualistic in my experience with this, but that doesn't separate me from people. And
there's a filtration system. Like you kind of have to, just because someone's full of shit, you don't need to tell them. Man.
Right? Well, there it is. That's the clip right there.
Like just because, like you don't have, like you can allow someone to offer some wisdom. It's going to be up to you of whether or not you want to take that forward. Like, but it's allowing people the opportunity to just be like, "What's on your mind?" right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think he's kind of fibbing. There's people that I had on guests where I'm talking to them, and immediately I'm like, I don't think this person's telling the truth. But it's like, it's not for me. It's not for me to direct that narrative. Like, if that's what they wanted to bring forward, by all means, like, I can do my best of like moderating that and saying, can you explain what you mean here? Like, there was a guy that I interviewed, I'm not going to say his name, but he had a bunch of different things that he was doing. And for me, I was like, I think this guy's full of shit, because like, you can't do all of these and like be as successful as you're telling me.
Yeah.
Right? But all I simply asked him was, how do you define the difference between like a hobby and like a personal, like a professional like endeavor? I want to know what you feel like to define that, because you might think your hobby is actually you doing it professionally, whereas in the zeitgeist, you're just kind of doing it. But to you, you might actually think that you're a professional at all these because you did one stand-up, or because you made one song, or you did one thing. And it's like, that's not my reality. But that's not up for me to decide, right?
Yeah.
So as long as I can define that for my audience and figure that out, but it's like, then I take that away. Thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. But it's like, I don't need that to like carry forward and be like, oh, now I need to like shit on this dude and tell him how much he's full of shit. It's like, there's a lot of people that are full of shit. It's like, and you're just like, thanks for the feedback, man. Appreciate it. You know?
Yeah.
And it's, but it's a hard thing to do, because everybody wants to be heard and everybody feels like they have the right answers. But it comes down to that emotional maturity where you're like, can I just allow someone to talk their shit, and they can feel a certain way and I can feel a certain way, and we can still like have this experience without it being like a conflict of like, no, it's this, no, it's this, no, it's that. It's like,
I think,
and go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good, man. I was just going to say, like, I think it's good to remember too that like your truth isn't the truth. Like, and that's to kind of quickly summarize it too. It's like I was thinking about this analogy, right? So imagine that there's a big crystal, right? You have different people looking at the crystal from different angles. The crystal is the same crystal, but the angle that we look at it from changes how we perceive it and how it looks, how light glistens off of it, how light reflects off of it too. And that just comes down to perspective and opinions, right? That just dictates how everybody views a situation, because it could be the exact same crystal, or in this case, it could be the same information, but somebody could view that a certain way just based off of their own unique experiences and where they currently are now too. And that's why I think about like, my truth might not be somebody else's truth, because that's a definition that we have in our mind of what truth actually means.
And it's the idea too, where I forget what his name is, but he's like a motivational speaker. He was like, if you were where I was at, you'd be thinking the same thing too. So maybe this guy's just like crazy driven and he wants it. And it's like, dude, and it's like, I tell people all the time, listen, if you were seeing things the way I was seeing things, you would completely understand. So it's like, I might think you're full of shit, man, but like the idea behind it is like, you have to have some perspective, like you're saying, of like, dude, maybe this guy's just crazy driven, and like, I have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about. And it's like, you know, and it's just like, hey, kudos to you for, you know, doing it. And like, I wish you all the best. Right. But it's that type of thing, right? Where it's, it all comes down to perspective, and you kind of have to be willing to have that humbleness and like relinquish that position of being like, you know what? I don't have to be right. I can just listen. I don't have to have an opinion. It's, you know? Yeah.
I can't remember what the exact phrasing you used was, but there is deep wisdom in this phrase, and it's, let someone bullshit, man. Like,
yeah.
And if you do that, and like, I've had so many examples of that with personal training for sure. It's become quite an art, but what I mean, like when I think back to touring and stuff, it's like, yeah, shows and all that stuff and flying with my friends is fun, but the bullshitting is the best part. And you talk to like ex-athletes, it's like they don't miss the games, they miss like the locker room, you know. And it's like sitting backstage talking to other guys the same level of our band that, well, I know half the things they're saying aren't true, but I'm gonna give them the space to do it. I'm gonna do the same thing back, and it's like you feel that it's like, okay, I'm allowed to be me. And it's incredible how people will open up when they feel that safety from you. And that to me is like true compassion and understanding, because you're still holding your, you're holding your space, you still have your boundaries and everything, but you're still allowing someone else to completely exist. And if they want to get a little squirrely on their tails, hell yeah, go for it.
Well, and you criticize someone, man, you're opening yourself up to get criticized back, and it's like you did it to yourself. So then these guys clap back and they go, well, let's talk about this, and then they go, whoa, it's like, hey, you asked for it, right? So it's like with every action comes a equal or greater reaction, right? So it's one of those things where people are so willing to give that criticism, but then when they turn around and go, well, I actually think you should be doing this with your band, and you're like, hey, now we're the shit.
Yeah.
And it's like, right? So it's just one of those things of like people leave themselves open, but and everybody screws up. Like, nobody's perfect. I could go out today and I could drive down the road and be like, that guy's a fucking idiot. And it's like, it happens. And like I could encounter a situation where that might bite me in the ass and I need to turn around and be like, okay, that wasn't cool.
Yeah.
Back to the drawing board.
Yeah,
like, but that's just how it goes, right? Like, you have to be susceptible to going like, I'm going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. I'm not a perfect human being. And like, there's always something I need to work on, whether that's relationship, whether that, like, the big thing with the podcast was like balancing it between how much time I'm spending with my girlfriend and how much time. And for me, I'm going, well, I'm doing all these things. Like, you have no idea what I'm doing. I'm working so fucking hard. But to her, that's not what she values. So I need to understand, like, well, there has to be a little bit of give. Like, if I have respect for her, I need to respect the fact that, like, I need to make more time available there. And at the start, I didn't get it. I was like, this chick has no idea. Like, this chick's an idiot. Like, she doesn't know how hard this is. She doesn't know how difficult this is. But then it comes down to, like, well, she's not supposed to. That's not her job.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's not what she signed up for. So I need to turn around and say, like, okay, cool. Like, I need to take that into consideration and go, like, not everybody's Ryan, not everybody's Bryce, not everybody's Rob. Like, and I need to understand that and be willing to, like, put myself in the situations that I need to be in and, bow out when I need to. Right?
Yeah.
And it's a difficult thing, and people fuck it up all the time. Like, we're going to leave here today and we're going to fuck up 1,000 times. And it's just the nature of the beast. But it's how you recover, and it's like how you, like, humbly, like, go forward with that and be like, okay, like, cool. That didn't feel good. Did I feel stupid? Yeah, I felt stupid. Okay, perfect. Well, let's not do that again.
I had a question for you, Ryan. One more question for you. For someone who's wanting to, like, maybe just get into the podcast space, they're wanting to start, like, putting episodes out. And I know you and I kind of talked about it too on your podcast. What would be, like, one piece of advice that you'd give them?
It's consistency. I think it's consistency, but it's also the idea of you just got to keep going. You got to, because you don't even know what the answer is yet. If you're putting out 1-2 episodes, it's like, we haven't figured it out. We're 80 something episodes in and we're still like, what are we doing? Right. So it's like every time you're constantly, like, rerouting and pivoting, but it's the keep pushing forward. That's kind of the biggest thing, is staying consistent with it and, like, always coming back to the drawing board. Cause I think people don't see the results, and then that equates to failure. And then it's like, but not necessarily, right? Not necessarily. Maybe you just zigged when you should have zagged, and you need to dial it back, and you need to head it at a different angle. Like, for me, it was, I needed to do more research. I was asking people questions about, like, professional things that I didn't really have any idea. I'm talking to people about art, and I didn't read any about art. It's like, so then I have to go and I have to learn about the Spanish Inquisition and all of these different things before I talk to this person, because it's like, well, I need to offer them the respect of, like, whatever I'm having. Why would I have this person on if I don't have a clue what they're talking about? Well, that doesn't make for a good interview, right? But that was one of those things I had to really learn. I had to say, like, how devoted and how, like, committed am I to this, and how well do I want, like, a successful product. But it was just keep coming back every time of going, okay, like, I'm interviewing a guy who's been commenting on our posts that does mukbang videos. It's like, I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna ask this guy.
Yeah.
But it's
he comments on ours, yeah.
Right. But it's like, you gotta just learn and be willing to, like, be committed, right?
Yeah, man.
Kind of
No,
long-winded, but
dude, no, of course. No, Ryan, this has been great. Thank you so much for coming on, man. Love what you're doing on your podcast, on your multiple different channels. And again, it was an absolute pleasure to hop on and have our chat too. But it was good to see a little bit more about you behind the scenes today and figure out like what makes you so passionate and driven to be in the podcast space. And it's great to see other people that are like us. Well,
yeah,
first of all, professional yappers, but second of
Yeah.
all,
yeah,
but
man.
second of all, people that just like want to make a difference and have cool conversations and put it out there for the world to listen to and watch. So thanks, man, for coming on today. This has honestly
Yeah.
been such a great talk.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. It's been an honor. I hope I allowed all of us to talk.
No, it's
Again,
awesome.
I have a hard time of like this is the first time I've been a guest, so I really appreciate it. This has been an amazing experience for me, and I think you guys are doing amazing, and I can't wait to continue collaborating with you guys on future stuff. And yeah, this will be great.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, of course.